Thank you for tuning in to As It Lays. Today's subject is Roger Corman. Roger, thank you for being here.
Happy to be here, Alex.
We'll just get started with the questions.
Fine.
What subject should never be discussed at the dinner table?
Politics.
If a crystal ball could tell you one thing about the future, what would you want to know?
Will humanity still be here in 1,000 years?
Could you ever forgive a lover who cheats?
It depends upon the circumstances.
Has inspiration for your work ever come to you in a dream?
Yes, many times. So much so that I keep a paper and pencil by the side of my bed.
Do you hold a grudge?
Sometimes, but I try to make it as small and as short as possible.
What's the closest you've ever come to giving up?
When I was shooting a picture off the coast of Yugoslavia, and the leading man, Stuart Granger, said he wanted the lines that were written for another actor, and the other actor refused to give up his lines, and the sun was coming up. We were shooting at night, and I knew if I couldn't solve the problem in 5 or 10 minutes, we had blown the whole night's work.
Do you have a sweet tooth?
Yes.
How do you cope with Los Angeles traffic?
With increasing difficulty. I've spent most of my life here, and I can see that every week, almost every day, year after year, it gets worse and worse.
Do you put those around you under pressure?
Yes, I do. I try to take as much of the pressure as I can for myself, but inevitably some of it must go to people around me.
What are your thoughts on cruises?
My thoughts on cruises are that they are best in the advertising. My wife and I were once on a cruise where we were sort of paid with expenses and everything to give a few lectures. And the second night out, I thought, this is kind of boring just sitting here in the middle of the ocean.
Have you ever felt like you were being followed?
I've never felt that I was being followed, but I was being followed one time when somebody tried to rob me.
Who's the most awe-inspiring person you've ever met?
Probably Picasso. My wife and I were renting a house in a very charming little town, Mougins, on the French Riviera, and we found out that Picasso was our next-door neighbor.
What's something that we should all take with a grain of salt?
At this particular moment, this is not an answer for the ages, but at this particular moment, the words of the President of the United States.
Did your parents do a good job?
They, as my wife and I have done, did the best job they could.
What, in your opinion, is the greatest show on earth?
Again, not for the ages, but for this moment, Washington, D.C.
What's the strangest thing about modern life that everyone just accepts as normal?
The fact that there is less and less contact between human beings. People live in gated communities, they communicate by cell phone. There is a breaking down of the bonds between people.
Is it important to have good manners?
I think it is important to have good manners, but good manners does not necessarily mean how you hold a teacup. It is simply how you relate to other people.
Recently, who has surprised you the most?
I wouldn't say it's necessarily a surprise. It's what I hope for. It is the lives and careers that my two daughters are having.
What's the hardest thing about your job?
The hardest thing about my job, particularly when I was directing, was actually carrying out on the set the plans that I made in pre-production planning. An idea, a concept, a way of shooting looks good when you first think of it. It sometimes becomes difficult or occasionally impossible to carry out while shooting.
What do you want the world to know about Roger Corman?
I would say I simply did the best I could as a filmmaker, as a husband, and as a father.
Well, that's all the time we have for today.
Very good.
Thank you so much for being here.
I'm happy to be here.
And thank you for watching. Thank you.